road. So for those of you that don't know, I'm Nick. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Prosal. And for those who aren't a part of our community, Prosal is an RFP platform and business development community that makes it easy for agencies and consultants of all backgrounds and sizes to find and win new clients through RFPs. Prosal is the only online platform that vets and shares high-quality RFPs and provides you with the resources and educational opportunities like this event to win those RFPs. Before Prosal, one of our co-founders, Alfredo, was in the exact same position as many of you. He launched and managed a digital communications agency serving environmental organizations like nonprofits and foundations. And in launching Prosal and getting to know so many of you, one thing has stood out that won't come as a surprise to anyone here. Business development is hard, and it's not always easy to get a return, whether that return is a hard win or even a soft win like an interview, feedback, or a new connection for the future. We've heard your requests to help you improve your ability to compete for RFPs, and these events that we're doing are a response to those requests. And so a little bit about this event here and what we'll talk about today. First of all, we're really excited to have you join us today. We emphasize practicality, so this webinar should be very practical. And these are the secrets to successfully applying for speaking slots at conferences. Ken Miller's our host here. His list of accomplishments is long, and his humility, frankly, hides it really, really well. We could probably spend an entire webinar talking about his qualifications. He's a certified fundraising expert. He's a master trainer for the Association of Fundraising Professionals and the president and owner of Denali FSP Fundraising and Grant Consultants. Ken's going to guide all of us through the entire process of responding to speaking RFPs in particular, from understanding what conference organizers are looking for, all the way to crafting submissions that highlight your unique value proposition. Whether you're new to the speaking circuit or looking to improve your acceptance rate, this session will equip you with the tools and the knowledge to increase your visibility and your impact through public speaking. Just a little bit of housekeeping here. Feel free to ask your questions in the chat. We'll be monitoring them as we go, and then we'll have dedicated time for Q&A at the end where we'll answer every single question in order. So without further ado, thank you all for coming, and here's Ken Miller.
Thank you, Nick. I'm very appreciative of that. And also I want to thank Alfredo Ramirez, for the opportunity to speak. I'm not getting paid. I do this for free. I do this to give back to my community, and I'll talk a little bit about that when I get into the slide deck. But before I get started, I always start with a thank you. And I want to thank the individuals that are on this call. I want to thank you for your investment in yourself and investment in whatever you do to provide for those that you love. And so thank you for being on this call. Thank you for the opportunity to let me share. Yeah, I do have some background in this, and hopefully it'll be something that's value added to you as an individual that either is looking to present for the first time or has some background and is looking for a few more tidbits to possibly increase your success in your application being accepted. So let's get started. Okay. This is a Prosal workshop, winning speaking slots, mastering the art of conference RFPs. Let's get into it. So first thing I've always talked about when I get started, and I present probably 20, 25, 30 times a year. And I always introduce myself as to who I am and why. My name is Ken Miller. I own a company called Denali FSP Grant and Fundraising Consultants. I'm out of Bellingham, Washington, but many people know me in the field. And then when I say in the field, it's the field of development, advancement, and fundraising, because I was from Alaska. I grew up in Alaska. I spent 30 years in Alaska, and I finally moved away about 2 years ago to Bellingham, Washington. I own a company, 4 employees. We predominantly do consulting in the world of fundraising, and also we write grants predominantly for tribal entities. As you can tell, I'm African American. I am passionate about DEI. We will talk about some access and inclusion in the RFP speaking world and why that is important. But also, I just want to tell you a little bit about my why. My why, real simple, is I want to give back. And I want to give back to my community, and I want to give back to individuals that are in the consulting world. I am a consultant. That's what I do. And I believe in this world, and I believe in Prosal. I was so thrilled when I ran across Prosal originally, about a year and a half ago. Someone exposed me to it. And I'm very rarely am I surprised by anything, but I was surprised by the quality and the quantity of the RFPs that are available. And Prosal has an area just for speaking. So those who aren't a member, please join. It's your decision. I will never say you have to. This is not a sales. I'm just saying what works for me. And I am so appreciative to Alfredo and Nick for what they've brought about and what they have to offer to our community of individuals who are looking to increase their business. So I believe in Prosal. I have a background that makes me want to give back very simply, and I'm just going to keep this real simple. I was homeless for 20 years on the streets. I was a homeless individual on the streets for 20 years. I got off of being homeless after my third stint in the penitentiary. I got out in 2007 with no skills, and I was allowed to come into the nonprofit world, the charity world, because in many areas we will allow individuals with diverse and backgrounds that have areas of concern that maybe the corporate world would not allow us in. And so I worked for a soup kitchen as their development director and grew in that, fell in love with fundraising and what we call development, and gave me an opportunity to give back to me and also my family and my community. And this is one of the ways I give back, by doing this and also by volunteering for many boards. I'm on the AFP Global Board of Directors, that's Association of Fundraising Professionals. I am on the African American Development Officers Board of Directors National. I am on the Men of Color in Development National Board of Directors, and I'm on a few local board of directors. And I give back. My passion is mentoring young Black men. So I just want to give you my why. That's why I'm on this. That's why I'm doing this for free, because I want your success. Also, I want to, when I came up, this is my slide deck. I developed this slide deck. I have been on the committees that chose speakers. I was on those for years. We call it usually educational advisory committees, whatever the committee, conference committee for speakers, subcommittee, doesn't matter, but I've been on those committees. I have scored hundreds. I have seen thousands of applications to speak. And then of course, I put them in all the time. I am usually very successful because I know what I'm doing. And I also know, and hopefully you'll get an idea. The other thing is, if you have any questions, we have only 15 slides, but and I usually have a couple minutes per slide, but if you have any questions, hold them to the end and I will answer any and all questions. And if I don't know the answers, he said something about my humility and I chuckled on that one, but if I don't have the answer, I can find it. I know where to look. Almost anything in the area of speaking and also in the area of fundraising and development. Those are my specialties. So looking forward to this. Let's have some fun. And also, this is the last bullet point I have on there. I want to increase the number of new voices speaking from the stage. And I also want to increase the number of diverse voices that are speaking from the stage. So if you're new, let your song be heard. Let your voice be heard. You have something to offer. You probably wouldn't be on this call if you didn't think you did. And then also, if you're from a diverse community, any way that you define that, please put in, and let's be successful when we make those applications to speak. So let's get started. Okay. Overview. Real simple. The overview is going to consist of the preparation to speak, how to respond to the RFP, or what they'll call RFPs, request for proposal, or they'll have request to speak, which is an RSS, request, RTS, you'll see that. Or sometimes you'll see a notice of funding opportunity. If it's a funding opportunity, that's a speaking gig that's being paid. So how do we respond to them? How do we prepare? And how are they scored? And this is, you'll get the backroom version of what we're looking for when we look at applications. And then just some tips. just some simple tips to increase your ability to succeed when you put that RFP in. Okay. So let's talk about the preparation. Okay. Preparation. What I do and what I always recommend is you create an online folder. So you take Box, you take Google Drive, you take Dropbox, whatever you may. You can also keep it in your C drive, but I love having it in an online folder. So that way, if I'm on my laptop traveling, I do a lot of travel because I travel to speak, I travel for vacation, whatever it may be. But what I always create is an online folder. I have mine personally in Dropbox. And in there, it's a folder that's called speaking. And in there, I have these items. And please, I love checklists. Just do them. It doesn't mean that 100% of the time are you going to use 100% of these items, but they're there, and it makes you much more efficient to be effective. Efficient to be effective. So first thing I'm always going to have in there is my headshot. And I always recommend a professional. I've seen headshots where I just shake my head. Why did you send this in? It was taken Christmas 6 years ago when it has 5 other people in there. I need a headshot and I need some professional. You can still do it on your iPhone or your Android, but get a professional headshot. Number 2, we call them action shots. Get a shot or have in your portfolio, your folder, one of you presenting if you have that. If you don't, get in front of a screen or get in front of a blackboard or a whiteboard and have someone take a picture of you presenting. They don't need to see the audience. They don't see the audience usually unless it's a large stage shot. So I have stage shots of me doing presentations to hundreds, and I also have me doing workshops or small group work or small group class work, because those are the 2 main things that we're going to be talking about is large presentations, which are usually your opening plenary, your closing plenary, and or your keynotes. Okay, and usually you work your way up to that level, and you will put an RFP to do that, or we're doing what we call breakouts or workshops or classes within the conference itself. Okay, next thing you want to do is have your resume. I emphasize things, and I have a lot of fun doing it. Keep the resume short. We don't need a 5-page curricula vitae. We do not need to have 10 pages of everything you've ever done. I always like to keep it 1 page. And you see I have in there Word and PDF. You always have a Word version so you can edit quickly or edit on the fly. But I always upload a PDF that's lockable. Okay, that's responding to grants, responding to notice of funding opportunities, responding to RFP 101. Always upload PDFs unless they state, which is rare, that they want a Word document or a Google Doc. So I always have a Word version that I can edit, and then I always have a PDF version that I'm going to upload. Have your bio. This is different than a resume, and if you don't know the difference, Google it, but you do know. I'm talking to to the choir here. Have a bio. The bio is 1 to 2 paragraphs. Because you got to understand, when I did AFP, International Conference Educational Advisory Committee, that is the group, we literally had 200 applications each that we had to look at and score. 200 per year applications. And the last thing I want to do is read 3 or 4 page bio or resume. I don't need it. The information I need is a summary in the resume of educational background, maybe background within our field or sector, and then contact information, things that are on the resume. The bio is a softer 1 to 2 paragraphs of who I am. And literally, and most of the time in my bios, I also will have the last couple, 2, 3 sentences, things that I'm passionate about. Get to know me, a little of my biography, okay? Then we want summaries. And when I talk about summaries, I'm talking about summaries of your presentation. I have 17 different workshops that I do, 17. And I have a 1 to 2 page Word and PDF summaries. Again, every time I do my summaries, I tailor them to the conference. They're tailored, but I have an overall slide deck and or presentation that I do that's connected to the summary of what I'm speaking about. Let's say I do one. I'm a fundraiser. I do one on direct mail for fundraising success. I have a 1 to 2 page paragraph on that. And it's a summary, but I have these all separate in a folder so that I can upload this information if so desired. I also have what is called a one pager, and I suggest this, especially if you have multiple workshops or presentations. And all these items, if you so request, I am going to send them to Alfredo, my version. Feel free. Use my version as an example or template. I know they work. I can tell you that. Okay. So I will send an example of all of my stuff to Alfredo and Nick, and then they can disseminate that out to you. Anyway, the other one is a one pager, and on the one pager it has a action shot, and then it has a list of all the titles of all my different workshops that I do. I always have that because many times in the beginning, I'll get the RFP will come out and they'll say, we have this conference come out. And what I will do is find out who's on the conference committee that's doing the educational advisory or is choosing the speakers. And I will send them a list and say, are any of these of interest to you? Again, that helps my chances because they said, yeah, we like these 3 or 4. I just did it for a conference I'm doing in New Orleans. I sent them my list of all the different things I can speak on or speak about. And if are any of these resonate with you or your team or your group. Then the other one, you see it's in italics because it's optional, but I always like to have letters of recommendation, especially within that field or sector that I'm speaking to. If individuals who know me, and there are a few people that know me, can give me a letter of recommendation who are part of that or well known within that field, I will use those and upload those, at least have those available if there's a place that I can add what we call appendixes and or attachments. Okay. Videos of past presentations. Now, remember, not everyone's going to ask for all these items, but I do want them available. Plus, I want them all in one place. So I have videos of my past workshops and presentations. Not all of them, but many of them have been recorded. They're in an MP4 or MOV. MOV is Apple iPhone. MP4 is just the normal general video format that we use. You can either have the videos themselves, but usually they're too large. And so what we do is we link to them. So if you went to my YouTube page, I have a YouTube page. If you went to my page, you'd see some of my presentations and workshops. So I have YouTube links, or I have links to my workshops or my presentations in my Dropbox. And I just give them my Dropbox or Google Drive link. And then they can see it if they so desire to look at my video. Again, it's more evidence. It's more batter. I love to use the word batter to bake a cake for the individuals that will be making these decisions to either to choose you, especially if you're going in as the plenary, closing plenary, opening plenary, and or keynote. Slide decks. I have a slide deck, of course, for every workshop I do. I usually keep that in Dropbox, but I also have it in SlideShare, and I have them on my LinkedIn page. So if you went to my LinkedIn page, you would see almost all of my presentations that have my slide deck. I'm very open with my information, very, very open. Every workshop I do, I share it with the participants, and even those that didn't participate, I will share that because I want you to get the learning, because I'm usually teaching something, and then my closing plenaries or my opening plenaries or my keynotes, if you wanted to see what I speak to or speak about, feel free to go to the places that have my videos. But my workshops, again, I will always have my slide decks available, but it gives them more information and more evidence of your competency to speak to a certain subject. Website. If you have a website, please, you want to have that as a link so that you can share that. I'm a big one on social media links. And this is why. When a team is looking at presenters, one of the questions many times I'll ask, are you willing or do you have the capability to promote the conference? So can you help us? Are you a value added by sending this out to your network? I have a large network. I have like 5,300 people on LinkedIn. I have over 5,000 in Facebook. Again, I've been doing this for a while. And I had this, and when I put it out to my peoples or my contacts, it helps the conference have engagement and have individuals sign up for the conference or come to the conference, because obviously a lot of them are in person. So do you have social media links, and do you have a following on your social media links? Another thing that you want to have is, on most conferences, they will give you your scores. They will literally give you the scores of the individuals that have participated in your workshops or your engagements that you have at the conference. And you want to have a list of those. I only share the good ones, and it's interesting. And I'm a big believer, look at your scores. It'll help you to get better in presenting. It'll help you to get better in doing your workshops and your teaching and your classes that you're doing. So look at your past scores, work on the areas that you can, but also understand, if you present long enough, you will learn in time that you can't please everyone. I've had scores where 98% thought I did a 5 out of a 1 through 5. And I used to get bummed at the one person that gave me a 1 or a 2. And this is just something from my heart. Know that you're good. Know that you're competent. Work your way up into having that sense of self-confidence, self-esteem, and self-competency, that you have something that's value added to the individuals that you're speaking to. But most of the time, you're not going to please 100%. Right? If you have any accreditations that are backed up by proof, use those and have a folder, or have them in the folder. So there's a certified speaking professional. It's difficult to get, but it's a great one to have, and shows that you are a speaker that's has spoken 250 times for pay to be a CSP. There's only 800, but there's other accreditations that you have within your sector. So I'm a CFRE. I'm one of 60 Black men in the world that have a CFRE, but I have that. There's other ones within my field called CAP, and then there's ACFRE. There's only 115 of those in the world. But if I see that and someone's coming to speak at a conference for fundraising or grant writing, and I see they have a ACFRE, I already know that they've been in the field for at least 10 years, and they probably have some great competency. So if you have any accreditations and you have that proof, because I have a CFRE certificate, I have a certificate. If I had the ACFRE, I would have certificates that would back that up in writing. Okay? Now remember, this is just in your preparation folder, but have all these things, because they will make you much more efficient when you go to send in your RFP response. Okay. Okay, so let's look at responding to the RFP. So you go online, and they're all online, and there is an RFP to speak at XYZ conference. The first thing that you want to ask yourself is, I have this workshop that I think would be good for this conference. Great, or I have this class, or I have this idea that I'd like to present from the stage or the classroom. The first thing you want to look at is, what is my audience learning level? Because they'll usually ask that question. Is it basic, intermediate, or advanced? And this is when we're going more into the tips. Remember, the more advanced, the less people that can teach to it. The more advanced, the less people that can teach to it. But they want to fill that slot. They want advanced. They want a mix. Every conference usually wants a mix. You want basic, neophyte, fundamentals level. But a lot of people can teach to that. You want intermediate level. Less people can or have the background to speak to that. And then at the advanced level, it gets much smaller. It's like a pyramid. And so many times I will usually, I'll do 2 or 3 per conference usually. And I'll do a mix. I'll do an advanced, because I can speak to advanced topics. I'll do an intermediate, and I'll do a basic. but I know I'm going up against a lot of competition in the basic. And many times I'd rather someone else do the basic because I'd rather teach to the intermediate and advanced level. Okay, so now we know what level we're teaching at and which ones that we're going to apply for. And look at your information, and you can tell who am I speaking to, right? Then you want to answer the question, number of presenters. And you can be single, I'm solo practitioner or a solo speaker. I can co-present with someone else, or I can be a part of a group or panel. And I'm gonna give you my recommendation. My recommendation, to the best extent that you can, either co-present or do a panel. Now you may, because it's your slide deck, it's your presentation, you may want to stay with the solo, and I do solo all the time. And I'm talking about more for the workshops. Rarely are you going to be the keynote on a panel. There's no such thing really as a keynote panel. Or if it is, it's very rare. Rarely will you even do a opening or closing plenary where you co-present or but it's been done. I've done it. I have one in my folder where I did a closing plenary on DEI with a co-presenter. But usually what we want to do with the co-presenter is this, and hear this if you are a consultant. Many of the conferences don't want you to go up there and just teach as a consultant. They want someone that's a practitioner. So understand that. So a lot of times when I'm getting ready to put in one right now for International Conference Association Fundraising Professional for 2025. And I called up a good friend of mine who is a practitioner. I mean, he fundraises for a living. I'm a consultant. I said, hey, would you like to present with me? And he's like, man, I would be honored. That would be so cool. Da, 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 da. I said, great, let's do it. Let's do it. Get you a chance to get on the stage. And it's my slide deck, but we'll modify it if we need it. We'll split it and let's go present, because I want to present with a practitioner. So many times you co-present with a practitioner, especially if you are a consultant. Let me say this, because I am very, very upfront about everything that I speak to. If you are a practitioner, a consultant, and you are a white male or a white female, I'm just going to be frank with you. Think about presenting with someone from a diverse background, period. It will increase your chances, period. Okay? I'm just being frank. And we'll talk a little more about the DI and access and inclusion, but I've been on the committees. We go into the meetings at International Conference, AFP, and probably the first thing we talk about is diversity. And we're talking about diversity, not only, please understand, not only in race, background, but we're talking about diversity in age and diversity in experience in presenting. We want new voices. I want new voices. And I want that diversity. So think about, am I from a diverse community, right? And then also when you're doing panels, definitely look at diversity on the panel. Not the last thing, but rarely do we want to see 4 white males, 45 to 50-year-old CEO consultants or, owners of companies. That's not diverse. We want to see new voices. We want to allow that. So I'm just being frank with you. Type of presentation, important. Is this going to be a lecture? Is this going to be a teaching where I sit in front of a group or stand in front of a group and talk, okay, and teach? Great, that's a lecture. Is this a facilitated discussion between me as a facilitator and the individuals in the room or online? So right now, this is a lecture. What I'm doing here is a lecture, but we'll talk about the facilitation. Am I moderating a conversation with a panel? That's a moderation. And then there's others that you can or cannot do, but those are the 3 main ones. And again, you need to choose which one. And let me tell you, many times, if you can do a facilitated discussion or a moderated discussion of a diverse panel at the intermediate level. You see where we're going? Instead of, I'm just going to do a basic introductory single presenter lecture, your chances are greater because we're looking for, again, diverse presentations, not just the diverse audiences or presenters, but different types of presentation. We don't want 30 presentations of someone sitting up there and lecturing. That's the facts in most conferences. Okay? And again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, save them for the end, we will answer them. Okay, next thing we want to look at, and they will usually have on there 1, 2, 3 different areas that you can tailor your presentation and or talk to. And that's the length. A short presentation is 30 to 50 minutes. That's a short one. A medium and very common is 1 hour to 1.5 hours of teaching. Very common. And then there's long, 1.5 hours to unlimited. I have taught classes at conferences that were 4 hours, easily, 5 hours. Okay, but that's rarer. So usually I always want to have my slide decks built for 1.5 hours because I can always cut them to 40 minutes. I mean, I get that all the time. Hey, you only have 40 minutes because we have 10-minute introduction and we'll have 10 minutes at the end. So can you do a 40-minute online class? Sure. Yeah, I just go in there and modify my slides and, you know, take out and then also I'm going to look at what is your theme, and then I will tailor it toward the theme and cut out some slides. So I always recommend having most of your slide decks and workshops. The old adage in our industry is that it's 2 minutes per slide. That's what I've always used, 2 minutes per slide. So this should have been and should be approximately 2 to 3 minutes. Should be 30 to 45, and it will be about 30 to 45. It's 15 slides. Handouts, super recommended. Okay, is that a word? Super recommended? Anyway, highly recommended. Please, 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 please have handouts. I told you I have handouts. You'll be getting them. Always have handouts. Actually, I just didn't even say recommended because they're going to ask you, are there any handouts? And you say, no, I'm just going to go up there and lecture for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. And there's no handouts, there's no engagement, there are no breakouts, da, 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 da. No. We've moved past that model and it's not effective adult learning. So there's education at the workshop, and then there's education after the workshop, or there's more information if you so desire to go more into that subject. I will have handouts, and I always had that. Whether people, you look at them or not, that's up to them. Okay. Presenter's background. Touched on this, so let's talk about this. To the best of your ability, you want to, because they will ask you these questions. They will ask you these questions. Most of the time, they're going to ask you to upload a headshot. It's not because they want to see your pretty face. They want to get an idea of your background. Okay? Be frank with you, an idea of your background. That's why I say it's ethnic. Let's have our headshots. LGBTQ. Are you of that community? What is your geographic? Now, again, in my field, we have 1,000 consultants out of DC and New York. Okay, probably about 1,000 in the fundraising field. And we're looking for voices or people from the West Coast. We're looking for people from Canada. We're looking for people from Mexico. We're looking for people from England who want to speak. We're looking for people who speak different languages. We're always looking for Spanish and French speakers for our conference because we have 4,000 people, 3,500, 4,000 people at the international conference for my association. And many of them are from backgrounds from different countries, and they speak Spanish or they speak French as their first language. Age, this is a big one now. For many, many years, again, people were just looking at what is your background? You've been teaching on this for 15, 20 years. I today would rather have someone who has been presenting for less than 3 years and is under 30 or is under 35. I'm 61. I've been doing this for too long. Okay. We want to bring in because the individuals are coming into our sectors, wherever conferences you're speaking to. They're coming in young, they're coming in vibrant, they're coming in with a lot of energy. You know, you teach the same thing for 15 years. I have things I've been teaching, and it gets a little dry after a while. And I think my energy sometimes wanes, and sometimes I just have to go in there and completely change up my slide deck just to bring some new life to it, because I could close my eyes and teach the class. Okay? What's the experience? And again, we're a lot of times looking for it. And a lot of times conferences will have a track just for new voices. And I'm talking about you haven't presented ever this presentation, and or you've been presenting for less than 2-3 years. So what is your experience? And you want to be able to speak to that. And we want to know who those presenters are with those background information. And they'll ask you specifically. A lot of times I'll put it in if they don't ask. Okay. Real important. Real important. Session title. Many times, this can make or break you. I hate to say it. You could have if you come in with some goofy, because what people don't want is friction on the committee. And what I mean by friction, they don't understand what the heck you're talking about by looking at the session title or your summary. We've laughed. We've been in the committee. There's 4 of us from all around the country looking at 200 RFPs and RFPs to speak. And we look at this title, I'm like, what is he talking about? Or what is she talking about? And the other one's like, I don't know. I can't understand it either. And believe me, they score very, very low. So have a session title. You always have a session title. And then you want it to be catchy if possible. Do the best you can. Keep it short. I mean, I've seen session titles I thought were the summary. I'm like, again, we want to catch a person's attention. Remember, everything we do, almost everything in marketing that we do, is to make people curious. Make people curious. And then I'm a big one on numbers. I do one that's the 6 pillars of self-esteem for the development professional or for the young professional, using numbers. And you see that all the time in the books and online, but if you can, use the numbers. And if you can, I use what we call a teaser. And a teaser is you have your title, and then underneath it, you have something that engages emotions. Let's call it teaser. It's marketing 101. If you have any questions on that, contact me or just Google teasers in marketing. Okay. Then you want to look at session track. Really, I would almost do this before I would look at session track, probably one of the first things. All it is when you go to a conference, they'll have different tracks. Okay, like we'll have a track on ethics. We'll have a track on planned giving. This is in fundraising world. We'll have a track on the fundamentals. And you want to tailor your title. You want to tailor your presentation to the track. So you look at the track, there's usually 3 to 6. And what I try to do is do multiple different tracks because I'm going to put in 2 or 3. And this is a real important one. Look at the tracks and look at the ones that are not as common or that you think there's not going to be as many people responding to. I mean, if it was something about annual giving, which is super common in the fundraising world, annual campaigns, we call them, 1,000 people can speak to that. But if I'm speaking to self-esteem for the young development professional, very few people will or can speak to that. I can. I've been teaching self-esteem for 15 years. So look at the tracks. Look at the things that are not as common. Okay? And then tailor your presentation by title. And you can also modify some parts of the slide deck to fit that track. Your summary. You want 1 paragraph, 1 to 2 paragraphs, show that earlier, summarizing the content. And because what they'll a lot of times do is take your summary and make it the promotional for the presentation itself. Okay. Okay. Session description. This is the longer one. And this will go, could be 2 to 3 paragraphs. They usually will give you a word count or a length count, character length count. And it's details of what is to be taught, shared, or discussed. And let's talk about AI real quickly. I am 100% for AI, period. I'll keep it real. And if you're not using AI, I'm a little surprised. Because what AI does, it allows me to have my draft of something that I am going to do. And you can, AI is all about how you ask the question. I'm not going to go into AI for drafting your presentation because I can do a whole presentation on that. But use AI, whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's Bard, whether it's Grammarly, use AI to give you batter to bake your cake, because then you're going to set the temperature. You're going to add a few more ingredients and have a final. But I'm a big fan of AI. So when I do my session descriptions, I always use AI. Just letting you know that. Learning outcomes, super important, super important. Have at least 3 minimum if they allow it. Sometimes they only will give you space for 2, but it's a learning outcome. Provide a short overview of what you plan to cover, and more importantly, what participants can walk away with. There's learning outcomes for this. I'll give you learning outcomes about the preparation folder, learning outcomes of the how to respond, and then the learning outcomes are how it's being scored, and then just some tips. Those are learning outcomes to this presentation. So make sure you understand that and answer that question. We get them all the time. People, because they really don't understand what they're doing with the learning, they don't answer the question. And you'll see I have one tip. Always answer every question. Activities and engagement, adult learning is about activities and engagement. I always recommend 1 to 3, per workshop. You can do breakouts online. You can do small group table work. You can do polls, surveys. We've done polls, surveys. If I was doing a longer version of this, and there is a longer version of this, I would have breakout, and we would talk about your experience, but we'd have online breakouts. And if I was doing this in person, I would go into small group or table work, and we would discuss within our small group aspects of each of these. Okay? That's adult learning. Okay. How they're scored. This is what we do behind the scenes. We get together, then on 2 or 3, I think 2 of them I can remember right, scoring committees. It's usually a team or group. It's not one person sitting in a room with a stack. It's usually a team or group. What their first thing we're going to be looking at is what is our theme of our conference and what are the areas. Remember I said there's going to usually be 3 to 6 areas. Are we looking for content? Okay. We're going to look at, are these new voices versus repeat proposals? We're going to look at that diversity. You like it or not, we're going to look at that. We're going to look at geographic. It's not as important as diversity of the voice itself, but it is important. And then if we have them, we're going to look at past scores, but past scores are not as important because we're looking for new voices. Almost every conference is looking for new voices. If not, we would just invite back the people who spoke last year. But we're always looking for new voices. So, but we will look at past scores if they are presented and we have them. But if you don't have past scores, say, this is a new presentation that I've been working on. This is my background. These are my bona fides to be able to present on this. This is my competency to this subject matter. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity to present this at your conference. But I do not have any past scores on this. We take that under consideration, and we appreciate your honesty in allowing us to know that. Okay? I put this in yellow because it's so important. Is it in alignment with the overall conference theme or those 3 to 6 sectors? Because again, we get applications. I'm like, why is this person even applying? Because it has nothing to do with our theme. It has nothing to do with either any of the 3 to 6 sectors or areas that we're interested for content. But people do it all the time. So make sure, And the crazy thing is, on paper, it may not make sense, but if you were to present it, it would make sense. But because you have or don't have the ability to articulate in writing how this aligns, that's why I'm teaching this. Align it with the theme, align it with the 3 to 6 areas of content that they're looking for. Title and teaser, we talked about that. It is important. I mean, there are ones, as soon as we saw the title, we're like, man, I want to see what the heck that is. Because we're curious. There was one about, they were talking about how to eat an elephant in the fundraising world. And it was this, we were like, what? But anyway, it was about, bite by bite. That's how you do it. But it was really cool. And we looked at it, and the teaser was good, and the content was good. Come on, let's go with it. And what we will do many times on the committee is we love the summary, we love the content. If there's a teaser, we love the content, we love your background, we love your geographic, but change the title. And we'll tell you that, change the title. Because we can tell by your summary, we can tell by your information that you provided, your outcomes and things like this is good, but your title, you've got to change that title. It can't be how to have a successful annual campaign. That's not going to work. It's not going to work. We need something that's a better, because we want people to come to your presentation, but people are going to come off the title, the teaser, and sometimes, or many times, the summary. Okay. Content and learning outcomes, we talked about that. Super important. Breakouts, engagement, and activity. Remember, we're scoring on this. And we have, because a lot of times, so this is how scoring works in almost everything. There are ones, we take one look at it, and on a scale of, let's say, 1 to 10, that's a 10. They're coming to the conference, or at least we're putting the invite out, period. And you'll have, some 7, 8, 9s, they make the cut. Then there's going to be the 0s to 4 or 0 to 3. No way, there's too much friction in their application, or the application is so poor that there's no way. And then there's a list between, 4 and 7 or 8 that they're on the edge. And now we have to look at other items outside of their content, their title, and their summary. And that's when we'll start looking at what are their learning outcomes? What's their engagement? Because again, if I have a choice between someone lecturing and I have someone doing a lot of engagement, we'll take the engagement all day long, all day long. And then, so what happens is I score all my 200, I send in my scores, the other 3 or 4 members of the committee send in theirs, and then you get a total score between the 3 or 4 people or 5 people that have scored you, and then those are aggregated, and then we have our top, our medium, and the ones that don't even have a chance. And then we meet back again and go over the ones that are 4 through 7. And you can, at that point, and I have advocated for specific demographics. I've advocated for specific things because, again, coming out of the committee, we can only forward another 10 or 20, we'll say. Okay? Real important you understand that is what we're looking at. Okay, so tips for success, and then we'll wrap this up. Title and teaser are so important. Again, it needs to be anchored to the theme, okay? Try something different with your title and your content. Again, annual campaigns for fundraising success is not going to fly. And I'm not going to apologize. Again, this is my field, but you can think of your field that you're in, healthcare, whatever it may be, and just look at, what's the basics and what is anybody can almost teach to. Okay? Do the RFP response and share with others for feedback. Share it with others. And I'm almost done here, Nick. Answer all the questions. Okay? Have good letters of recommendation. Ask for and have your past scores. Share the good ones. Look at past scores and comments. Especially look at your title, alignment, and content outcomes. And look at what do I offer, or what can I offer in the area of access, inclusion, and DEI. Submit multiple. Thank the scoring committee no matter what. Co-present. We talked about this. Co-present. If lead on the panel, try to get diversity on the panel. Please keep submitting and have someone look at it. Ask committee for area. Remember, we talked about that even before I submit. Many times, if I can, I'll ask the committee, what areas are you looking for? Where are you having difficulty filling from past conferences? Again, submit something new and unique. Enjoy the process. Have fun. And summary, prepare, respond, score, you know how it's done, and tips. Alignment is so important. I just can't emphasize that enough. And this is my contact information. I'll also put in the chat if you have anything offline that you want to contact me. But with that, I will end, and hopefully we have a couple minutes left. We do, a few minutes left for any questions or anything else that Nick would like. Thank you for allowing me.
Ken, that was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing us this wealth of knowledge. Just as a reminder, everybody will be sending slides and resources afterwards, in addition to the recording. This was great. I want to start by thanking Ken, first of all, for your time. This is just amazing. I think everybody got a lot out of it. We have one question that we saw in the chat that I would love to relay your way and get your thoughts on. I think the question here is, what is the best way to position yourself if you're on the younger side with less experience?
Position yourself as younger. And say that, hey, I am newer to the field of speaking or presenting, but I'm very excited to grow as a speaker, and I would love the opportunity. I put that in my summary or in my response when I ask them, what areas are you particularly looking for? Sometimes you can even ask, are you open to new voices? And every field wants people to come into their field. And how can they come into the field if they're not allowed to be a part of the field? It's that, that thing about you can't be a success because you're not a success already. So that's what I would do. I would literally make sure that they understand that, I'm 26 years old. I've been in the field for 2 years, but I can also speak to something that speaks to your group, your cohort of being a young XYZ, and talk to that, because we know young people are coming to our conferences and they need somebody from their cohort to speak to them. They don't want to hear from this old 61-year-old dude from Alaska. Great question.
I love it. I guess the takeaway there is you have unique strengths, play to them.
And everyone on this call has strengths. I saw another question in there, it just popped up because I was listening. Where to find RFPs to speak. I've talked to Alfredo and Nick on this, and I may put together a presentation. I do this for free, so my capacity is limited in some areas. It took me like a year to get this together. But I'll put together, because I know where to look. And go to Prosal. Prosal has places that are looking for speakers. So that's one right off the top. Okay. Any other questions, please?
And we're going to get more on that front as well. We'll talk, Ken, we'll talk after this, put together a little resources document. I want to make sure if anybody has a question that they'd like to ask outside of chat in person, just feel free to raise your hand and unmute yourself and just ask away. We'll give it about 30 seconds here. And then if nobody has any questions, we'll just wrap up.
Please ask a question. It's for you. And it's for the others that are on the call. I have a big one on there. I give you permission. Ask your question. If you have any comments, you talk too fast, or I'm open. It doesn't hurt me.
Okay, we got Shelly in the chat here. She's asking to speak about getting paid to speak versus doing it for business development purposes, which is a very good question.
Right. So either one, you're getting paid. One is, especially again, So when I speak, I never sell my services. Never, never have, never will. That's an ethical reason I do that. Okay. But I've been to many presentations that people are selling their company or organization, and they're not asked to speak again at our conferences. I can tell you that right now. Now, again, there's two different things. One is business development. Anybody wants to contact me offline, feel free. Go to my website, check me out. I don't care. I'm not looking for business. But the other thing is RFPs to speak. First of all, they'll let you know when you go, or there's one of two main ways. One is they pay you to do the keynote, the closing plenary, or they will give you what they call a stipend. Many times a stipend for all speakers. $500 is very common, $1,000. And many times it'll cost you more to go speak, especially if it's in person. But I love giving back. It's a vacation for me anyway. So I hope I'm answering this question. If you're interested in being a speaker at the closing plenary, opening plenary, keynote level, join NSA, period. National Speakers Association, period. I would do that. If you're a person of color, join Black NSA, which is a part of NSA. I belong to both of those organizations, and become a professional speaker. I am. I get paid thousands. I do this. I don't do this for a living. I know people make over $1 million doing this a year speaking. I'm not at that level, nor do I choose to be. I'm more about teaching, and I'll do a closing, I'll do a keynote, great. Okay. But that's what I would do. I'd look into NSA. I'd go to the Influence Conference in August. And remember, so much of this, you, by being on this call, have made an investment in yourself, because you only have capacity in two areas, time and money. And you've made a time capacity choice. You've invested in yourself for whatever reason. So I would recommend, if you want to go into the speaking for money, and I'm talking about more of the plenaries and the keynotes, join NSA, go to the Influence Conference in August.
Cam, we got a couple more here. So Aaron wants to know about co-presenting, team presentation, tips for specifically collaboration versus, sharing the mic, and I'm assuming blocking and physicality in that, and writing that script accordingly.
Okay. Yeah, I love that question. Great question. I co-present a lot. In fact, I teach solo all the time, but now I have made pretty much a decision that I will always co-present, because I want to bring in younger, newer voices. Okay, because I mentor and I want to bring in those guys and ladies. I did this presentation a month and a half ago. I did the slide deck, but I asked a Black woman to present this with me, so I could have a co-presenter as a woman. Okay, so what you're looking for, again, I always want to look for diversity in different areas if possible. How we do the slides is I sit down with either the co-presenter or the panel, but it's usually a co-presenter, and I'm like, which slides do you want? What slides do you want? And that's how we break it up. And then if it's online, like we just did the one, she did like first 10 slides. I did the second 10 slides. She did the third 10. And then usually I'll do like the last 10, but we always come together to answer questions. Okay. And then a panel, remember, you're either moderating a panel or you're a member of a panel. And I'm a big one on moderating, where you have a host who asks the questions. I don't like the person on the panel asking questions, or just say, okay, audience, got any questions? Have it moderated, then open it up. But have that, and then it'll take a while. But anyway, on a panel, you want to get the group together and everybody makes an introduction. And then specifically, usually the moderator knows what questions they're going to ask specific people, and then we'll open it up to the audience.
Ken, we got time for one last question.
Let's do it.
Leslie, recommendations for tailoring your proposal versus virtual versus in-person talks. For example, accessibility needs, I'm assuming, in the virtual space.
So in the virtual space, because I do both. I teach a class called the Faculty Training Academy. So I teach adult learning for presenters. I do that twice a year. We do one in person, we do one online. And the courses are the same, the material. It's just, how do we do the breakout? How do we do small group work? And it's so important, if you can, to do small group work. If I'm doing in person, it's usually table work. We call it table work because you're sitting at a table with your other individual. But sometimes I'll mix up the tables. Yeah, I want you to count off 1 through 4, and we'll mix it up so you have different people because I want engagement. And then if I'm doing online, I always have breakout sessions. Always have breakout sessions. This is sort of a rarity for me not to have one on this, but I always have breakout sessions. I have polling, I have surveying, I have whiteboards, and that's how we would do online. And in person, I have handouts and I have breakout sessions. And the other thing is I engage I do a lot of physical movement. And if I can, I try to get my audience to physically move at specific times for specific reasons. We'll go to the whiteboard, or we'll go to the flip charts. And I want you and your group to do X, Y, Z. That's how we engage. I hope that would help.
Okay. I said it was the last one. This is actually the last one here. Actually, follow up really quick. The colors, transcripts, translation, sign languages, sign language, those types of accommodations when it comes to access, specifically in the development of the proposal.
Okay. Did you have one more question, or did you want me to answer that?
No, that's a clarification. I think we can knock this one out really quick here. Just a reminder for the Speakers Association orgs, the names of the organizations for people of color.
Yeah.
Just a reminder. What were they?
There's Black NSA. Okay. That's Black National Speakers Association, which is a part of National Speakers Association. And if you are in anything to do with the fundraising world or the charity world, African American Development Officers is free, and you can be a member of that organization. And if you're a male, that's a person of color in the charity nonprofit world, then I would recommend Men of Color in Development out of Atlanta, Georgia, and NSA is, I believe, out of Chicago.
Awesome. And that, again, super last one is the clarification on the proposal development, like the actual, so in-person versus virtual, like the usage of colors in the presentation, the way that we can do accessibility virtual versus in-person, I believe. And Leslie, feel free to come off mute and clarify, because I do want to get you your answer to that question. And Aspen, just as an aside, yes, the presentation and the slide deck will be sent out to all participants.
Right. So colors. So go ahead, Leslie.
Just interject. I'm sorry, Ken. Yeah. Thank you again for all of this information. I just wanted to clarify. I wasn't trying to overcomplicate, but I think when I think of accessibility, right, I'm thinking about learning abilities. I mean, some of what you talked about, right, in terms of knowledge base, but even just how people receive the information. And so people who have, sight needs, hearing needs, learning ability needs, and making those accommodations in presentation. And some of that comes in the form of like the colors you use on your presentation, right? Or having captions, or like we have a transcription today. So those types of things, that's what I was inquiring about in terms of how you propose that in virtual versus in person, or maybe you keep it the same for both types of proposals. Thank you.
Yeah, and I appreciate the question, Leslie. It's an awesome question. And I know I had to get going. I know many people have to get going, but I'll answer this. So for all my presentations, I have a artificial intelligence that does a recording of my presentation and gives a synopsis. And then people can listen to it if they need to. When you're doing, and that's online, but that's all my presentations. Again, I have to work with whatever the conference is doing. I can't force them to be inclusive and accessible, but AFP, we're really big on that. And we have many. And most of the time when you're doing keynotes and plenaries in front of the larger group, we almost always have someone doing sign language in person. That's almost always being done. And we can improve on that. And I'm talking about more conferences can improve on that, but that's a decision that's made at the conference committee level. And what I do is whatever you have or whatever you want me to do. And I'll just end with this. I just was reading up. This is a rare slide deck for me. What I mean by that, I hate reverse print. And I can teach you and talk to you all day long about reverse print. And it's rare that I'll have reverse print because reverse print is difficult for people who have vision problems, especially as they get older. So it's rare. I don't know if that was one of the reasons why you brought that up, but that's one of the things that when I redo this, I actually came up with the slide deck, and then my partner decided she loves these colors because it looked good, looked cool. And I've used the same one, but I'm probably going to turn it back to positive print, which is black or colors on a white background because it's easier on the eyes and it's more accessible, especially to individuals who are older. So, but great point, and I appreciate your thoughts and concern on that. I do have to get going. In fact, I'm late for my next meeting. Very appreciative. Nick, Alfredo, whatever you need, send me an email. Anybody who wants to contact me offline, feel free. I answer all my emails. I answer all of them. No problem. This may take me a day to get back with you. Okay? So I got to go, guys. Appreciate everything.
Everyone, thank you so much. We went over a little bit because we're having such a good time.
Yeah.
Thank you all for attending. More is coming. In order to understand how we did and improve future events, please complete the survey you'll get after so we can learn a little bit more about what you want to see and how we can do better. Thank you all. Have a wonderful Thursday and even better weekend. Bye, everyone.